Most people don't realize they're praying to the past. They say they want change, yet they keep feeling like the version who needs it. Neville Goddard would call this the great illusion, trying to create the new, while still emotionally loyal to the old. You can't step into tomorrow if you keep bowing to yesterday's memories. The truth is, the world isn't holding you back. Your state is. You've probably tried affirmations, vision boards, or endless hoping, but deep down, something still feels stuck, right? That's because you've been planting new seeds in old soil, and no matter how much you water them, the fruit can only reflect the vibration of the planter. Neville's teachings turned this upside down. He said the outer world is just a mirror of inner identity, that the secret isn't to wait for life to change, but to assume the change already happened, to live in the end. Once you emotionally move into your new reality, life has no choice but to conform. This video isn't about wishful thinking or blind faith. It's about understanding the mechanics of consciousness, why the law of assumption works, and how to finally stop looping between desire and delay. Because once you master this truth, the struggle ends. You stop trying to fix your life and start remembering who you already are. Most people think change begins with action, but Neville Goddard taught something deeper. It begins with state. The state you're in now is quietly planting seeds for tomorrow. If the soil of your inner world is full of doubt and worry, the fruit will reflect that. You can't build a new reality while your emotions are still feeding the old one. It's like trying to grow roses in sand. The truth is, the old state always feels familiar, almost comforting. Even pain can feel safe when it's what we know. That's why people say they want transformation, but keep reacting as the same person. They affirm abundance in the morning and fear bills by night. It's not inconsistency, it's unconscious loyalty to the old vibration. Imagine someone trying to drive to a new city, but refusing to leave their driveway. They've got the map, the intention, maybe even the excitement, yet their wheels never move. Emotionally, that's what happens when we crave a new reality, but stay mentally parked in the past. To shift your state, you must be willing to feel unfamiliar emotions: relief, gratitude, certainty. The law of assumption doesn't respond to words, it responds to being. You can say, "I am wealthy" 100 times, but if inside you still feel lack, the outer world will mirror that feeling. The manifestation truth Neville Goddard revealed is simple. The feeling of the wish fulfilled must replace the feeling of wanting. You don't think your way into the new, you feel your way there. Every new reality begins as an internal mood, a quiet frequency that reshapes perception. That's why he said, feeling is the secret. What you emotionally accept as true starts recreating itself outwardly. You don't force the change, you nurture it by refusing to return emotionally to the old state. Your emotions are the builders of your world. Think of it like tuning a radio. The music of abundance is always playing, but you can't hear it while tuned to fear. Shifting your emotional channel is the work, not the chase for external results. The moment your inner tone changes, the outer world has no choice but to adjust. Conscious creation is really conscious reception. The challenge isn't that people can't manifest, it's that they keep planting new seeds in old soil. They meditate on peace but live in constant reaction. They pray for change but nurture doubt. Until the inner garden is cleared, the weeds of the past will always dominate the field. Emotional cleansing is spiritual gardening. Every time you react as your old self, you reinforce that timeline. Every time you respond as your new identity, you water the new seed. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. Life isn't judging your pace, only your persistence. The more often you choose the new feeling, the faster the old dissolves. The irony is that the old state will try to convince you it's still real, through memories, triggers, and familiar patterns. But these are just echoes of a vibration losing power. The moment you stop feeding it, it begins to starve, and as the old fades, a quiet stillness appears, the doorway to conscious creation. The state you occupy now is not permanent unless you insist on keeping it alive. Every emotion is a choice to invest in one version of yourself or another. When you finally stop arguing for your limitations, the new begins to bloom naturally. That's when you realize change doesn't start in the future, it starts right now, within. And that awareness opens the path to what Neville described next, how every state is already complete in itself. Neville Goddard often said that every state of being is like a self-contained world, complete, alive, and ready to be occupied. The moment you step into it inwardly, that state begins expressing itself through people, circumstances, and even coincidences. Each one carries its own logic, emotions, and patterns. You can't visit two states at once. You must inhabit one fully. Think of a movie set. When the actor steps into costume, the world rearranges itself around that role. Props, dialogue, even lighting. The old state doesn't fit the new script. The law of assumption works the same way. When you assume the wish fulfilled, reality starts dressing itself to match your new identity. But you must let the old character fade from the stage. Most people try to drag the old version of themselves into the new story. They want transformation without surrender. But as long as the old consciousness stays alive, it keeps reasserting itself. You can't live in the new reality while still emotionally reporting to the old. One state must die for the other to live. Not in pain, but in peace. Each state carries its own memories and responses. When you step into the state of "I am loved," you suddenly remember moments that confirm love. When you live from "I am lacking," your mind recalls only scarcity. The past rearranges itself to justify your present belief. That's why Neville insisted, you change the past by changing states, not by rewriting stories. Conscious creation isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about shifting what you identify with. The you that struggled, waited, or doubted doesn't have to evolve. It just needs to be released. Once you leave that mental home, a new version of you takes its place naturally. The inner world always updates before the outer does. Imagine your states as radio stations again. You can't hear both static and symphony at the same time. When you tune to one, the other ceases to exist in your awareness. That's the nature of spiritual awakening. You realize the world is nothing more than your state reflected. So, to experience heaven, you stop reporting from hell. The power of assumption lies in full commitment. Half-hearted belief keeps both timelines alive. But once you emotionally marry the new identity, truly feel at home there, the universe recognizes you differently. Opportunities, encounters, and intuitive nudges start aligning. It's not magic, it's resonance. The hardest part for most isn't assuming the new, it's leaving the old unrescued. We feel guilty letting go of our struggles, as if comfort came from suffering well. But nothing noble exists in staying small. To rise, you must outgrow your need for familiar pain. The new can't arrive until you stop defending what's outdated. Every state already holds its outcomes. Abundance carries generosity. Health carries vitality. Love carries peace. You don't create these traits, you access them by entering the state where they already exist. The work isn't to chase what's missing, but to identify where you're standing within. Your consciousness determines the view. When you finally stop visiting your old state and decide to live in the new one, life begins to rearrange with breathtaking precision. Things once forced become effortless. What used to feel far away now feels normal. And yet this is only the beginning, because many try to blend the two, and that confusion silently keeps both alive. This is where most people unknowingly get stuck. They affirm one thing and feel another. They say, "I live in abundance," but deep down they're still counting every penny. That emotional contradiction sends mixed signals to consciousness. You can't live in two realities, the old state of lack and the new reality of fulfillment, at the same time. Neville Goddard called this the double-minded state, when the mind reaches for heaven while the heart still clings to the familiar hell. The law of assumption doesn't respond to words. It responds to the emotional charge behind them. If your affirmations feel like effort, you're trying to convince the old self, not be the new one. It's like trying to drive with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. You make noise, burn energy, but go nowhere. The feeling of the wish fulfilled requires surrender, not struggle. To shift your state, you have to stop reacting to appearances that belong to the old version of you. Otherwise, you keep watering both gardens. The moment you react to lack, you resurrect it. Your attention is creative power. Wherever it rests, reality grows. So when you panic over a bill or obsess about timing, you're breathing life into the state you're trying to escape. The manifestation truth is that the outer world is only ever echoing your inner one. Conscious creation means loyalty to one reality only. It's choosing to see abundance even when lack shouts louder. Neville's teachings weren't about pretending, they were about knowing. You assume the end not to escape reality, but to redefine it. The shift happens when your faith in the unseen outweighs your fear of the seen. Think of it this way. You can't boil water while simultaneously adding ice. You must maintain consistent heat. That heat is your feeling of certainty. Every time doubt creeps in, you cool the process. So instead of fighting doubt, simply return to warmth, to the calm knowing that imagination creates reality, always. Mixing the two states often shows up in subtle habits. Checking for results too soon, talking about trying to manifest, or constantly affirming without feeling. These keep the old vibration alive. The inner world doesn't speak English or Portuguese, it speaks energy. It listens to your tone more than your vocabulary. To embody the new, you must stop using lack as proof of progress. That's the old mind's game, needing evidence before believing. The power of assumption flips that. You believe first, evidence follows. You walk as if it's done, not to trick the universe, but because your state of being is the cause of the scene. Splitting focus drains energy. Integration brings peace. When you stop oscillating between "I have it" and "where is it," you'll notice something powerful: silence. That stillness is the birth of the new reality. It's when desire and fulfillment merge into one calm awareness. It is done, but few stay here long enough. The moment a challenge appears, they slide back into reaction, keeping both worlds alive. Yet this very conflict, the temptation to react, is your initiation into mastery. Because the next step, as Neville said, is realizing that waiting for the outer world to change first is the greatest illusion of all. The greatest trap in manifestation is waiting. People think life will confirm their change before they truly believe it. But Neville Goddard revealed the opposite. The outer world is only a delayed mirror of the inner world. If you keep waiting for the reflection to smile first, you'll never realize it's your face that must move. Waiting is the disguise of disbelief. It says, "I'll feel secure when it shows up." But that mindset locks you in the old state where lack and longing are normal. You don't shift realities by waiting for proof. You shift by assuming the proof already exists. Faith isn't blind, it's creative. Think of your consciousness as a movie projector. The film inside determines the scene outside. Changing the screen won't help if the film stays the same. Your new reality starts when you replace the internal reel, your self-concept, tone, and expectations. The screen of life can only display what's already been accepted within. Every time you say, "I'm waiting for things to get better," you postpone your own transformation. The law of assumption operates now, not later. You either live as the fulfilled version or the waiting version, and waiting is just another mask of the old state. To assume the wish fulfilled is to stop postponing yourself. The identity shift Neville taught isn't about pretending, it's about relocating. You mentally move into the version of you who already has the result. That version feels natural, relaxed, certain. They don't hope, they know. From that state, new opportunities begin to appear almost magically, because reality must match identity. Imagine someone trying to receive a new broadcast, but refusing to change the channel. That's how waiting feels energetically. You keep expecting different music while tuned to the same frequency. To shift your state is to stop listening for the old melody and begin humming the new one, even before you hear it fully. When you assume the end, you bypass time. You step into the scene of fulfillment and emotionally anchor there. Life then unfolds as the bridge of incidents to make it visible, but the bridge can't appear while you're still staring at the desert, complaining there's no path. Movement begins the moment you feel you've arrived. Many think surrender means doing nothing. In truth, surrender means ceasing resistance. It's the moment you stop negotiating with circumstances and start accepting the truth of your inner vision. That calm certainty magnetizes everything aligned with it. The world bends to a mind that has decided. Remember, you are not manifesting things. You're manifesting states of being. Money, love, health, they are shadows of identity. Once you become the person who naturally has them, they must appear. The power of assumption is not about control, it's about alignment. The mirror reflects what's held before it. The mistake of waiting ends when you realize that movement doesn't start in action. It starts in consciousness. The inner shift precedes the outer shift. And once you live from that truth, a new kind of peace arises. Because the next step isn't about effort anymore, but about imagining from the end, as if it were already done. This is where Neville Goddard's teachings become both mystical and practical. He said, "Imagination creates reality, not metaphorically, but literally. To imagine from the end means to enter the scene of fulfillment so vividly that it becomes your new emotional home. You don't watch yourself from the outside. You are the one living it now. Most people visualize as if watching a movie, third person, distant, detached. But Neville taught to step inside the frame. Feel the air of your new environment. Hear the sounds that belong there. Sense the ease in your body. The more real it feels inwardly, the faster it begins to crystallize outwardly. This is the bridge between spirit and form. Imagine someone who wants abundance. Instead of repeating, "I am rich," they close their eyes and become the version who already is. They feel the relief of financial freedom, the calm of knowing bills are handled, the joy of giving freely. That inner rehearsal isn't fantasy, it's state selection. The law of assumption uses that emotional data to rewrite life itself. When you live in the end, you stop begging and start being. You no longer vibrate as the seeker, but as the receiver. The energy shifts from "I hope it comes" to "I'm so grateful it's here." And that quiet gratitude, not forced, not acted, becomes magnetic. Conscious creation flows from beingness, not effort. Neville compared it to sleep. You drift into imagination as naturally as you drift into dreams. There's no strain, no checklist, no analysis. You simply feel it real until it feels normal. And when it feels normal, it's done. The outer world then catches up like a slow echo to what your inner self already declared true. The inner world is a laboratory for reality. Every time you imagine from fulfillment, you're rehearsing the vibration of the new self. Over time, those feelings become second nature, your default setting. When that happens, you don't need to visualize anymore. You simply live from that assumption automatically. The key is sensory involvement. If you desire love, feel the warmth of a hand intertwined with yours. Hear laughter that belongs in shared peace. If it's success, smell the wood of your new office. Feel the fabric of clothes you'd wear. Sense the pride in your heart. These sensory details convince the subconscious, this is real now. People often ask, but what if it doesn't happen? That question itself reveals they're still imagining from lack, not as fulfilled. The manifestation truth is that the scene you consistently feel is the seed that must bloom. It cannot fail. It can only take time proportional to your emotional consistency. To assume the wish fulfilled is not about pretending or denying current circumstances. It's about recognizing they're simply remnants of the old state. You acknowledge them without reacting. You walk through them as if they're old scenery fading behind you, knowing that what's next has already been claimed. The beauty of this practice is its simplicity. You don't need rituals, tools, or proof, just imagination, disciplined, emotional, and alive. When you master feeling from the end, life becomes less about pursuit and more about recognition, because the next realization is even more profound. Feeling is the bridge that carries you there. Neville Goddard's message was always clear. Feeling is the secret. You don't manifest through thought alone. You manifest through emotional conviction. The feeling is what builds the bridge between the unseen and the seen. Without it, imagination remains a sketch. With it, imagination becomes living architecture. The old state often feels heavy, tense, and full of what-ifs. But the moment you touch the energy of relief, that sigh that says it's done, you begin to cross the bridge. Relief isn't laziness. It's alignment. It's the body's way of saying, I finally believe what my soul already knows. That feeling rewires your inner world faster than hours of effort. Gratitude amplifies this bridge. When you give thanks in advance, you declare ownership. You no longer wait to receive. You acknowledge that you already have. Gratitude turns desire into recognition, and recognition into embodiment. It's the emotional signature of someone who's living in the end. Calm certainty is the third piece. It's not excitement or obsession. It's quiet power. It says, of course it's mine. This certainty doesn't come from logic, but from emotional surrender. Once you feel the truth of your new reality, you no longer chase signs or timing. You walk in peace because the outcome already exists in you. Many misunderstand feeling it real as forcing happiness. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about touching the emotion that would be natural if it were. That subtle shift, from effort to ease, opens the doorway between worlds. You stop trying to manifest and start being the manifestation. Think of your emotions as the language of creation. Words are letters, feelings are meaning. You could repeat affirmations endlessly, but if the emotion behind them is doubt, that's the true message you're sending. When you choose relief, gratitude, and certainty, you're fluently speaking the language the universe understands. The law of assumption is emotional law, not intellectual. Every assumption carries a vibration, and that vibration determines experience. If you assume it always works out for me and truly feel it, life bends to confirm it. But if you say it while feeling panic, the vibration contradicts the words. Feeling decides which world you enter. Imagine standing on a bridge between two lands, one called lack, the other called fulfillment. Every time you return to worry, you step back into lack. Every time you breathe into trust, you move forward. The bridge doesn't appear instantly. It builds itself under your feet as you walk by faith, not sight. Relief, gratitude, and certainty are not emotions to force. They're states to allow. They emerge naturally when you stop fighting the process. It's like floating on water. The more you relax, the more the water holds you. The inner world works the same way. Surrender makes you buoyant in the sea of your new state. Once you anchor into those feelings, the world around you begins to echo them. People respond differently. Opportunities flow easier. Timing becomes perfect. That's when you realize emotion is not a reaction to change. It's the cause of it. And the next test of faith appears when the old reality still tries to pull you back. That's where persistence is born. The moment you decide to live from your new reality, life will test your stability. Neville Goddard never called it punishment. He called it persistence training. The old state doesn't vanish quietly. It echoes. It wants to see if you'll bite the bait again, if you'll react the same way you always did. But this time, your job is simple. Remain unmoved. Tests don't mean you failed. They mean your shift is working. You're changing frequency, and the old vibration is flickering out. Those final flashes look like chaos, but they're just the remnants of a world dissolving. When you stop reacting, you stop reviving it. That's the moment the bridge begins to appear beneath your feet. Persistence isn't repeating affirmations endlessly. It's emotional loyalty. It's choosing your new state again and again, even when appearances mock you. The law of assumption rewards constancy, not perfection. You can stumble, doubt, or cry, but if you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you win every time. Think of the old reality like a movie ending. The credits are rolling, but you're still sitting in the theater arguing with the plot. The film is over. It's safe to leave. The moment you stand up and walk toward the next screening, your new identity, the old story loses power completely. The real test is whether you'll keep sitting there. Staying unmoved doesn't mean emotionless, it means grounded. You can feel disappointment without embodying it. You can witness a delay without calling it failure. This is conscious creation at its highest level, knowing that every event is simply evidence of what you once believed, not what you're choosing now. Neville often said, persist in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. That means when bills arrive, you don't panic. You smile gently, knowing they're artifacts of an older timeline. When a person doubts you, you bless them silently, because you no longer need validation. That calm defiance is your proof of transformation. Each time you react differently, you rewrite your destiny. When something triggers you but you choose peace, you collapse an old loop. When you feel lack but choose gratitude, you close a portal to the past. Persistence isn't about holding on tighter, it's about letting go deeper. You no longer identify with the one who worries. The old self survives through reaction. It feeds on your attention. Every argument, every fear, every moment of doubt is a small donation of energy to the past. When you stay still inside, refusing to engage, that self starves. Soon it has no voice left. And what's left is pure awareness, anchored in the new. This is why spiritual maturity looks like silence, not spectacle. You stop explaining, proving, convincing. You just are. And because you are, reality follows. The power of assumption isn't loud, it's steady. The world bends to those who refuse to bend to appearances. Your stillness becomes your statement. The moment you realize you no longer need to fight for your new reality because it's already done within, a deep peace settles in. That peace is the sign you've crossed over. Yet something beautiful happens next. Life begins to show early evidence of the shift, subtle, quiet signs that the new state has taken root. When the new state finally anchors, it doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It arrives quietly, almost unnoticeably. You realize one morning that the thing you used to chase doesn't feel distant anymore. The desire loses its tension. That's the paradox Neville Goddard described. The more real it feels inside, the less desperate you become to see it outside. One of the first signs of a state shift is a change in impulse. You no longer feel driven by fear or urgency. Your actions feel natural, inspired, and effortless. You don't try to make the right choices. You simply do. That's how the law of assumption expresses itself, through naturalness. You act from who you are, not from who you're trying to become. You'll also notice that things start flowing more easily. Small coincidences multiply. the right message at the right time, a person mentioning an opportunity you'd been thinking about, or a sudden sense of alignment. That's not luck, it's resonance. The inner world has changed its frequency, and now everything vibrates to match it. Another subtle but powerful indicator is calm detachment. You stop watching the clock. The need to check, control, or confirm fades away. That quiet confidence, that knowing, is the sound of manifestation unfolding naturally. It's what Neville called living in the end without anxiety about the means. The emotional landscape transforms too. The constant mental noise softens. Relief, gratitude, and peace become your baseline. You might even forget to manifest because you're too busy enjoying being the person who already has. That's the real success. Not the outer result, but the inner restfulness that precedes it. Sometimes the early signs appear as loss, old habits, friends, or situations falling away. Don't panic, that's alignment in disguise. The old state is shedding what no longer fits your new reality. It's pruning season before the bloom. When you see something leave, whisper, "Thank you. You served who I was, not who I am." You'll notice your language change too. You stop speaking from lack. Words like, "I hope" or "I wish" naturally disappear, replaced by "I trust" and "I know." Even your body reflects the shift. You breathe deeper, move slower, and respond with more grace. This is the physical manifestation of feeling is the secret. Another unmistakable sign, your desires feel normal. What once felt impossible now feels obvious. You don't glorify it, you expect it. That normalization is powerful because the subconscious manifests what feels familiar. Once fulfillment feels ordinary, it can't help but materialize. Then comes a gentle surprise. People start treating you differently. They mirror your new identity without even knowing it. Compliments, respect, and opportunities begin to flow from places you never sought them. That's your reflection confirming what's changed inside. Remember, the world shows you you. These quiet shifts, new impulses, calm trust, natural ease, are the footprints of transformation. You don't need signs carved in stone. You feel them in your bones. And as the old state dissolves completely, a deeper embodiment begins. One where your reactions, words, and self-concept align automatically with the new identity. True transformation doesn't happen when you talk differently. It happens when you react differently. Neville Goddard said that the moment your automatic reactions change, your state has changed. Deep embodiment is when your inner world has been reprogrammed so fully that you don't need to remind yourself who you are anymore. You simply live it. At this stage, the law of assumption becomes effortless. You no longer oscillate between old and new because your consciousness is anchored in the version of you that already has. You respond from peace instead of panic, from faith instead of doubt. It's not forced discipline, it's natural identity. The old state dissolves quietly, like fog under the morning sun. The beauty of embodiment is that it feels ordinary. You don't wake up thinking, "I'm manifesting today." You wake up being. The thoughts that once required effort now flow automatically. Gratitude, confidence, and calm certainty have replaced fear and worry. And because the subconscious runs the show, your world follows effortlessly. Even language transforms. You no longer speak about what's missing. Your sentences begin with, "I am," not "I'll be." That small shift in tone changes everything because words reveal where consciousness lives. Neville used to say, "You must become so at home in the feeling of the wish fulfilled that it feels like breathing." That's embodiment, emotional fluency. People around you will feel the difference even before they understand it. You attract from identity, not effort. Relationships soften, opportunities align, and synchronicities multiply, not because you're trying to manifest, but because you're radiating a coherent vibration. You're no longer reacting to the world is reacting to you. One of the most liberating parts of this stage is realizing you don't have to protect your manifestation. When you're being the new state, no amount of doubt or delay can undo it. The outer world might wobble, but your inner world remains still. That stability is power, quiet, unshakable, magnetic power. Embodiment also means forgiveness happens naturally. You no longer carry resentment because it doesn't fit your new identity. The old version of you that held grudges or needed validation simply doesn't exist anymore. Conscious creation is emotional decluttering. Everything unaligned falls away on its own. The manifestation truth is that you can't fake embodiment. You can affirm, Visualize or meditate all day, but if your reactions haven't changed, your state hasn't shifted yet. And that's okay. Persistence turns practice into personality. Eventually, your nervous system learns the feeling of fulfillment so deeply that it becomes your baseline. This is also the stage where miracles feel mundane. Things fall into place so seamlessly that you forget you ever struggled. The new identity handles life's challenges with grace because it doesn't see problems, only unfolding scenes within consciousness. That quiet mastery is the real spiritual awakening Neville pointed toward. The old state doesn't die in battle. It fades through neglect. You stop feeding it attention, and it withers. What remains is peace, the peace of someone who knows creation is finished. And from that peace, the final truth becomes clear. You were never meant to balance both worlds. You were meant to live fully in the end, where everything already is. This is the essence of Neville Goddard's teachings. You cannot serve two masters. You can't be half in the old state and half in the new reality. Consciousness demands total commitment. When you step fully into the end, you tell the universe, "This is who I am now." From that moment, everything begins to rearrange to support that declaration. Creation doesn't respond to effort, it responds to identity. The outer world is not testing you, it's matching you. Every circumstance, every conversation, every delay is a mirror reflecting who you believe yourself to be. So long as you identify with the old version, life must obey that script. The moment you shift identity, the scene changes. Imagine a play in which you keep switching costumes mid-performance. The audience, life, becomes confused. One moment you play the fulfilled self, the next the struggling one. But once you choose your role completely, the stage lights stabilize, the dialogue aligns, and the entire production adjusts to your chosen character. That's living in the end. Stepping fully into the end means burning the bridge of doubt. There's no backup plan, no what if. It's radical inner certainty. You don't check for evidence, because evidence is inevitable. You're no longer asking when, you're declaring now, and that now becomes the vibration that bends reality into form. The power of assumption is absolute faith in imagination, not hope, knowing. Neville called it living from the end, not toward it. That subtle difference changes everything. You stop being a traveler searching for arrival and realize you already live in the destination. Your only task is to remain emotionally loyal to that truth. When you dwell fully in the end, your world transforms quietly, naturally, and sometimes imperceptibly. People shift roles, circumstances realign, opportunities unfold. It's not magic, it's mechanics. The inner world dictates the outer. What you accept as true within must eventually appear without, for imagination and reality are one continuum. Many fear that stepping into the new means losing the familiar, and they're right, but that's grace, not loss. The old state crumbles only because it can't coexist with your new vibration. You can't take yesterday's frequency into tomorrow's reality. Letting go isn't surrender, it's graduation. The most beautiful part is realizing you were never trying to create anything new. You were remembering. The version of you living the fulfilled life already existed in consciousness. All you did was choose to identify with it. Manifestation is less about building and more about uncovering what's always been true. As you live from this awareness, resistance disappears. You stop negotiating with life and begin dancing with it. Everything flows, not because circumstances have changed yet, but because you have. The mirror no longer dictates your expression dictates the mirror. That's conscious creation at its purest form. And when that realization finally sinks in, that you can't create the new while living the old, you stop waiting and start being. You step fully into the end, and the world rewrites itself to match your decision. From that point forward, life becomes less about struggle and more about remembrance of the power that's been yours all along. So what if today you stop trying to fix the mirror and simply change the face you're showing it? What if everything you've been chasing has just been waiting for you to become the version who already has it? Neville Goddard didn't teach people to chase miracles. He taught them to embody them. Take a quiet moment tonight and ask yourself, which self have I been living as? The one waiting for proof or the one already fulfilled? Because your answer shapes the world you wake up to tomorrow. The law of assumption is always working. The only question is, for which identity? Remember, the shift doesn't happen through force or control. It happens through being. The instant you step fully into the end, Life begins rearranging itself to match that vibration. Old states fade, new realities unfold, and you realize the power was never outside. It was always in your feeling of being. If this message spoke to you, don't let it stay an idea. Make it a practice. Live as the new self starting now. And if you want to keep learning how to apply Neville's teachings and master conscious creation, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's an entirely new world waiting for the one who finally decides to live from the end.